Should start. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to the sports breakdown once again. So today we will be doing several topics today. So mainly our focus will be on the Sri Lankan squad, that 2020I squad that was released yesterday against India. So only the 2020 squad has been released for now, and I think after 2020 series is over, in the mid series in the 2020I series, they will announce the ODI squad. So we'll be discussing on that. We will be discussing about the press conference that Upul Tharanga and Sanath Jayasuriya attended, and we'll be discussing on that as well. And also we'll be discussing a bit on the LPL as well, LPL 2024 that just concluded. We'll be discussing on obviously the emerging players and obviously the players who performed in that tournament as well. And lastly, we'll be discussing about how the Sri Lankan women's team has been performing so far in the Women's Asia Cup 2024, where Sri Lankan women's team actually went to the semi-finals. It's been confirmed. So congratulations to them, first of all. So we'll be discussing on that as well. So our three guests who are joining today are Mark Machado, who's joining us after a very long time. I brought him twice to my channel, but it's his third time joining us. He's obviously the founder of the Murali End, and as you know, guys, I think the Murali End is one of the the best in terms of Sri Lankan cricket content that's going on X and on YouTube as well, if you follow them. So thank you so much, Mark, first of all, for joining the video. I know you're so
Thanks for
busy,
having
but
me.
yeah, you took the time to join my channel. So great to have you. And as usual, we have Adil Siddiq, who's joining us, who's also a cricket journalist, and who worked previously at the Papare, and also, cricket content creator on X. And also we have Shamigan joining us for the very first time, who also is an employee. You work for the Papare right now, or do you not work right now?
Not really much.
Not really
Not
much.
really
Okay.
much.
Okay. All right. So he was also working previously in the Papare, and now also follows cricket as much as we do. So thank you so much, Shamigan, for joining us. I think it's the first time that you're joining us. So thank you so much for accepting the invite.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. And Adil as well, as usual, joining us. So thank you so much once again, Adil, for accepting the invite as well.
It's great to be here. Great to be talking cricket.
Yeah. All right. First of all, so let's discuss on the squad. Mark, coming to you. First of all, I want to discuss on the Sri Lankan squad, the 2020I squad. First of all, your thoughts on Charit Asalanka being captain of the Sri Lankan team in 2020I, because obviously they gave Hasaranga the captaincy back in December, Mark, but now 6 months later, obviously after what happened in the 2020 World Cup, Hasaranga actually resigned, and even Upul Tharanga in the press conference, he said that he was shocked, at what Hasaranga made that decision. But I feel like Hasaranga would have been pressurized by social media or whatever. But you can give your opinion on that. But your thoughts on Asalanka going to captain the 2020I squad, and whether he's the perfect player to captain both the 2020I and the ODI squad. The ODI squad hasn't been released, but I assume that Charita Salanka is going to captain the ODI squad also, with ODI team also, with what the selectors have in plan. So your thoughts on that, Mark?
Firstly, I think Charit's a great player. He's obviously captain Sri Lanka under-19s. I think he captained Richmond College, which about half this squad seem to have played with him at as well. He's he's been groomed for captaincy in a kind of way that seems to only happen in cricket from quite a young age, right? And I think there's no one on this show who wouldn't have expected him to be captain at some point in his career. I kind of wonder though, considering we're going through captains again quite quickly, which is a kind of uniquely Sri Lankan trope, whether or not actually they should have kind of not forced but made Hasaranga stay on, right? Because I know we had an unsuccessful World Cup, but I kind of feel if you've appointed somebody 6 or 7 months ago, and what could have changed, and you thought he was going to be a good captain, what could have changed so dramatically that you think he can no longer captain the side? Some people might go, oh, well, it's because of kind of LPL form or because of the World Cup. When actually, what I really want to see is I want to see the selectors and I want to see people at SLC really back our players and back our squad and give them the confidence to go out and fully express themselves. We know talent-wise, Hasaranga can play 2 or 3 different roles in the team incredibly well. You've made the decision to make him captain 7 months ago. Just stick with it. Stick with it for a little bit. What are we going to do? So if we go out and lose all 3 T20 games against India in the next few days, is that Asalanka's career as captain done? Is he on the scrap heap? Because that we've been in that situation in the past, and it feels like we might be back in that situation again soon. So, obviously I wish him all the luck. I think he's got the potential to be a great captain. Though, I mean, some of the decisions made when he was Jaffna King's captain the last LPL. Sometimes I was like, oh right, I'd want him to explain that a bit in post match. But he's won the tournament. He's been a fairly consistent player since he's come into the side. And I obviously I hope he does a good job. But I just hope that we're learning from all these things, and this inconsistency isn't there full time.
Mark, a follow-up question. Do you think Hasaranga did the right thing by stepping down? Like, do you think that he could have, handled the media or social media or that pressure better? Or, I don't know the reasons why, he stepped down. I feel like it's the social media, whatever, that could have affected him. But do you think that the captaincy actually affected his performance? Because I know he was kind of aggressive and all that in the 2020 World Cup, but, he's still learning, and, there are some captains who haven't captained before and who have learned from the past. I think Hardik Pandya is a good example that what he did in the IPL as well. So I feel like, yes, you might have not captained in the past, but you can learn from it, from the other senior players, and, try to groom yourself. But your thoughts on the exact reason why Hasaranga could have stepped down? I mean, it's a strange choice, but even Tharanga also was shocked in the press conference as well.
So obviously he stepped down because he felt it was no longer tenable in that position, right? I think a lot of that's come from kind of pressure on social media. Obviously, I'm not him, so I don't know what it's like when he's going around his day-to-day business, what people are saying to him. If people see him at bus stops, or he's walking around a shopping centre, or a lot of people weren't very impressed with him buying $2,000 bag in New York after losing one of the games and stuff like that. I think there's and also I think us as fans, we need to look kind of rethink what our relationship is with the players, right? Because and this isn't just a Sri Lanka problem, it's a South Asian problem, right? In South Asia in particular, there seems to be this attitude that if they have lost, it is in some way their fault, and they need to kind of go and sit in a darkened room and think about it till the next game arrives, and kind of wallow in the depression of losing, when actually, they're professional sports men and women. We can talk about the women later. They'll want to be trying to put in as good as performances as they possibly can do. It's pretty rare that you get to be as good as cricket as anyone who ends up being selected for the Sri Lanka squad, and you don't have that kind of winning mentality and want to win all the time. I think that's maybe slightly different to whether or not they're good or bad professionals. We can talk about that differently. But I just think, if he feels it was the social media pressure around it and the kind of external pressures around it, I think that's a bit of a shame, because he maybe wasn't as successful as we all hoped, but I can understand why you get frustrated from a fan's perspective about him missing games or being fined or being in the middle of all controversy. But actually, I kind of like that energy that he brought to this team. I like that kind of playing on the front foot. That's what we really love, right? And also, if you go back and look at Sri Lanka teams at their best, all the way, from kind of rekindling the kind of spirit of not even 96, 95, walking off that pitch in Australia and stuff like that. It's about being aggressive, and it's about taking the game to the opposition. And I think that's what he was trying to do. We were starting to see what his captaincy was all about, and it's got shut down in its infancy, which I think is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to Shamigan now, let's talk about the squad a bit. So Dinesh Chandimal and Kusal Janit Pereira have somehow managed to join back the squad. As we know, a lot of people now, the Sri Lankan fans, are saying, why is Chandimal joining the squad back? Yes, he had a very good LPL. Yes, we know he's been performing this season and even the last few seasons. But as we know, his average is pretty poor. Although, in Sri Lanka, yes, he may perform, but we are not sure how he will perform overseas conditions. So your thoughts on the inclusion of Dinesh Chandimal and Kusal Pereira, and also yes, we saw the in the press conference when Upul Tharanga was being asked like who's going to play at the number 3 position, they all of a sudden forgot Kamindu Mendis and then spoke either Kusal Pereira or Chandimal's going to play at number 3. So that's also a strange choice because 2020 usually we see about the future players who are going to perform for Sri Lanka right now. That's the plan that Sri Lanka going ahead, and then they're thinking about these players who are either 33 or 34. Yes, I won't say anything about Kusal Pereira, what he's been performing well recently, but Chandimal, I don't get how he's got a return back in the squad. We did the same thing with Matthews. It failed. Now the selectors are not interested with Matthews. Now it's come with Chandimal yet again. So your thoughts on all this, Shamigan?
Yes, I'd back Chandimal's selection actually. It's very strange for myself to say that because I've been a critic who always said Chandimal is he's not in ODI format, no T20, no Test cricket. He's been in all over the place, but I'd still back him and his selection at this point of time because I think he's been grinding really hard in the domestic arena, and that was really visible in the way he performed in the LPL, and I think he's found the right way to approach his innings right now at this stage of his career. Pretty late, but yeah, I think that's what for me that's what's actually justifying Shantimal's selection because always Chandimal's problem had been that trying to play all three formats because I think it was pretty hard for him to adjust. And now that he has gone focusing all on all out and out of firepower, going hard at the ball, and focusing less on his technique, trying to be true defensive on it. So I think that's the way he's approaching his innings lately, especially in domestic cricket. So I like that from Chandimal, and also the experience would be an addition. But other than that, yes, I also wonder what happened to Kamindu Mendis in that number 3 position. But see, this is Sri Lanka. We have to accept certain things the way they give it to us. So I mean, but Kusal Pereira, I just it seems very odd if we are still having Kusal Pereira in our plans for 26 is a question that should be answered by the selectors. But other than that, I still have a problem with the squad when we talk about it widely. Because
Yeah,
are we going with a strategy-based selection, or are we just selecting whoever is performing well? Even Chandimal, for that case, would be a pick that he was performing well in LPL. Okay, come in at number 3, and we forgot coming to Mendes all of a sudden, and all the strategy that we are trying to build. So
yeah,
that is the problem I have, and I think inclusion of Chamindu Vikramasinghe
yeah,
is a good thing. And again, are we gonna groom him specifically for 2026? Because we see immense lot of skill. Myself and Adil, I believe we spoke for about over an hour about his skill because we see a lot of potential in that kid.
yeah,
So, are we
definitely.
gonna
Yeah,
groom him at number 6, number 5 as a designated mid-loader all-rounder, or are we just gonna try him in and out and play with his confidence like most of the teams did in the LPL? So that's the question. But overall, when we look at it as a composition for the team, uh, again we have a problem of playing two slingy fast bowlers. For me, that's an issue. That not having a regulation fast bowler and playing, if at all we drop Chamindu and play Dasun Chanaka at 6 or 7, I think that would be a problem because for me Dasun Chanaka is not fit to play as a frontline fast bowler for us. He could give us a couple of overs, but other than that, I don't think he could be one of the frontline fast bowlers for Sri Lanka. So having two slingy fast bowlers could come in a little bit of as a disadvantage for us because especially playing at night and skiddy conditions
yeah,
and playing in the same venue for three or three T20s. I think people could get used to them pretty soon, and
absolutely.
that would be like that won't have the surprise factor after that. So I think that is not what I'm a fan of. So probably we'll play Benura Fernando, but we've not seen much of him. And Asita Fernando also has been pretty expensive for my liking in the LPL itself. So playing against India, I lack one fast bowler, and if we are looking at this squad, that is one thing that I'd be focusing for the future from now on. play a proper fast bowler, a regulation fast bowler, work with someone like probably Dilshan Madhushankar, bring him back and work with him for the future so that we have a good team ready for 2026.
Yeah. Also, Shamigan, coming back to you, I want to ask on Avishka Fernando because yes, he's been performing. He's the highest run scorer for LPL in history, and he's been performing well in LPL all the 5 seasons. But talking about this number four position now, again he has to now slot to number four because the selectors have confirmed that Pathum Nisank and Kusal Mendis are going to open, and now Avishka Fernando will have to play that number four role. And yes, some matches he did perform in that number four role, but it's a question mark as how Avishka Fernando is going to play the number four role because you have Bhanuka Rajapaksha who plays the number four role very well. We saw that in the LPL finals. He can play under pressure and all that, but he still couldn't find a place in the squad this time around, and they'll stick with Avishka Fernando. And we know in international matches when Avishka Fernando has been playing that number four role, he has failed in quite a lot of occasions. So your thoughts on that, Shamingan? Because I feel like Avishka Fernando is an opener more than a number four in 2020. It's my opinion, but your thoughts on that?
Yes, Avishka Fernando proved himself as an opener, came into the scene as an opener. But Pawan, I personally think you should allow players to grow and find their mojo, find their space in whichever the place. Because Dinesh Karthik made his open when he was 19, and he made a huge crack. He came in as number three bat for India and did expected so much, but he fell in deep pits, and
Yeah,
fought his way back as a finisher and ended the career very in a pretty high note. So you should let. I personally believe that you should let players explore and go about their business and find it. Because see, again, when Avishka Fernando made his debut as an opener, he was 18,
yeah,
so he was barely finding his feet, not
yeah,
just in cricket but in life itself. So
obviously.
learning and growing with that sport would have changed him and his approach toward the game. And but answering that question, how he would fit at number four, I'd rather touch a little bit on the previous question you asked from Mark about how Vanidu Asaranga failed, probably due to social media and the pressure. Because I think one main factor Avishka Fernando always falls back is with that pressure, which the entire society, entire Sri Lankan fan base, not just Sri Lanka, entire cricketing community puts on him. Because again, they label him as, you came in as such a prodigy, made at 18, you made the cut when you were in school, and what have you done so far? Those things are what probably is holding back Avishka. With the very little I know Avishka about, and all the cricket that I've seen him play, because when you take that pressure out of him, when he's performing in a school game
Yeah,
or when
I
he's
think
performing.
we got stuck with Shamigan. Yeah, I think we'll hold this point. But
Hold on, Pavan. Can I
yeah,
just ask everyone a question? What would
yeah,
you guys do with Avishka? Uh, what was Sharbi and Adil and as well, Pavan? Because I think the solution is, I think
yes,
if you're going to pick him, you just go right. You're batting four, and we're not dropping you for another 18 months. Just regardless, just
yeah,
go. We're backing you. That's kind of like, I know it's a bit Owen Morgan esque. I think he's the only person who's ever kind of successfully done that. It's also what the Australians do, right? I remember when Cameron Green came onto the scene, I was like, who is this guy? Like, who is this kid? He looks like they've picked someone out of the crowd to play. And now you look at him, and he's a jolly green giant, isn't he? So
yeah. But the issue, Mark,
who,
is for me, like with Avishka Fernando number four, like he has to sort of play as a power hitter role. I feel like if he's playing at number four, like he can't, take lot of deliveries to obviously settle because I feel like Hamindo Mendes will have to take some time to obviously he's playing at number three. I feel like he should stick to play at number three, and I feel like he might take some balls to obviously take time. And Avishka Fernando is sort of like a senior player now. He's been playing for like 4 to 5 years, so you need to expect him obviously to take maybe take 4 to 5 deliveries because it's a 2020 match. Obviously, he can't take a lot of balls to settle, and that's what we've seen in the past 2 to 3 years when he's played at number four. He's taken some time to obviously settle, and you can't expect that in a 2020 match. If he's settling, he has to settle it very quickly, and then after that, play boundaries and all of a sudden. But I feel Avishka Fernando is sort of a conservative batter for me. Like that number four batter should be sort of like a player who should be a power hitter, and that's why I slightly prefer Bhanuka Rajapaksa. But obviously now they don't obviously in have added him in the squad and all. So I expect Avishka Fernando to play that role that Bhanuka Rajapaksa would obviously play at that role, and I hope he can take those learnings from learn from his mistakes from the past. I feel on that.
So when you see Avishka play in the LPL, he seems to just tee off from the first ball he faces, right? When you
Yeah,
see him in the LPL, he looks like it's his own arena. I think Ardell called him Mr. LPL, right? He's like it's like Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, isn't it?
yeah,
And I think the whole thing is that they've created an environment there that he feels comfortable in. Cricket at that top level is as much as your brain and what's going on there as it is your technique and all that. We know
yeah,
Avishka has the technique. We know like he has every. I know there is some. Obviously, there is some weaknesses in this game because he gets out the same way every time. But
yeah,
we know that he has the skill set at least to play international cricket. The
yes,
frustrating thing is, from our perspective as fans, is that it's clearly a lot of this is in his head. And I don't know him well enough. I've never met. I don't know him at all. I've never met him. I've only seen him. But
yeah,
I'm sure there's people around him who could. I don't want to say it's not one of those things you're going to fix at one conversation, but it's definitely the kind of thing a sports psychologist can fix. And if the coaching team had the wanted to fix it, you could fix it. Like, and I actually think the hard part is to find people with the skill set, right? The mentality thing is kind of easy. If you've got someone with his kind of skill set, you need to invest in what you need to invest to get him to be as good as he can be. I don't know, like you guys might disagree, but
yeah.
No,
Agreed.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
second, I actually back everything what Mark said, because that's where exactly I was heading. Because sports psychology is a factor that Sri Lanka is far behind, because I think that's something that we, as a nation, as a cricket board itself, not just in the international arena, but also going down to the domestic level, maybe even to the schools level, we should focus on that sports psychology and how we are gonna give players the confidence and the backing enough to
yep,
work with mental capacity. Because I think the main problem, Avishka Fernando, as I mentioned, Avishka, Mark backdate the way he batted in LPL, because he had nothing to lose and he knows the team has the faith in him. But when it comes to Sri Lanka and playing for Sri Lanka and international cricket, I think that goes away for him. So that's when he starts playing in the back foot. So I think that's the kind of approach that Sri Lanka should take, especially not just with Avishka, but with almost the entire batting lineup. Because if you see, Virat Kohli had a great, like a huge slump, but they stuck by him. And if Kohli, being Kohli, can go through that, I think Avishka Fernando is just very easily he could slip down that.
yeah, definitely. Coming to Adil now, let's talk about the bowling, obviously, and I think Mark and Shamingan also touched a bit on, I mean, Asita Fernando's obviously going to replace Chamira now because obviously Chamira's ill, so I think he's going to miss out the series, 2020 series, so that's a shame. But again, we are going with two slinging bowlers that Shamingan has brought out, which is also issue because in the 2020 World Cup also we saw they both went with Matish and Nuwan Tushar, and we know that batters actually read both of them very well, especially Tushar and Matisha. Yes, Matisha is learning. He's young. Yes, in the IPL he might be performing, but as I said, the IPL level and the international cricket level is two different things. And in international cricket, obviously, when you play for the country, obviously you feel the pressure. You feel the pressure of the fans. It's a different scenario that you go to. Obviously, when you play for international cricket, so you can't compare the IPL performances and international cricket. That's why I never compare both of the franchise leagues and international cricket separately. But your thoughts overall on the bowling that we have, because now we are obviously going to play Chamindu Wickramasinghe no matter what. I think I don't know what sort of role he will play, whether he's going to play as a number 7 as that Shanaka is playing, whether he's going to play as a finisher or he's going to play at number 5 or 6. I don't know what Sanath Jayasuriya is planned with that. And also, your thoughts on the fast bowling as well. Like, are we lacking? Like, is it a big issue that Chamira is getting injured often? Because I don't know why we haven't picked Dilshan Madhushankar in the first place. No one questioned, as you said, the journalists, none of them questioned about Dilshan Madhushankar. They are asking different other silly questions, but they're not asking the actual questions that have to be asked. Definitely on Madhushankar, whether he's injured, we don't know whether he's injured or whether he's not in the plans for Sri Lanka cricket much because they preferred Binura Fernando over Dilshan Madhushankar for some reason. Because I assume that they're picking the squad based on LPL and not from the past 10 performances for Sri Lanka. Because what I see, the squad has been based on the LPL what they've picked. And also, you brought in also the squad composition, and also your thoughts on that overall, Madil, starting with the bowling that we have.
Yeah, so coming to bowling, I mean, let me just remind you guys the conversation that was going around in world cricket, not just Sri Lankan context, before the T20 World Cup. Like everyone was in awe of the bowling attack that we had, right? Not just the Sri Lankan, as I said, not just the Sri Lankan community, everyone, like any podcast that you would, that you watched previewing the World Cup, they were like, man, this Sri Lankan bowling attack is great. Uh, so like because we had like proper T20 specialists. Vanindu, yes, even though he has gone for some runs in the recent games, he's up there as one of the best T20 bowlers going around in the world at the moment. Mahesh Tikshana he's my favorite, like proper T20 bowler. And of course, Matisha Patrin, even though you say like we can't compare his IPL, yes, of course, the difference what I see in the IPL, in his IPL performance and internationally, is that in the IPL his role is quite clear, right? He doesn't have to think about anything. His role is just dead bowling. He doesn't have to carry a bowling attack or anything like that. Like the plans are given to him, he just needs to go and execute. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, it's pretty much the same conditions, pretty much the same batters. The competitiveness maybe international cricket is a bit tougher, but not that different. And IPL offers you one of the toughest conditions to bowlers, right? Let's just put there. IPL offers you one of the toughest conditions for bowlers. So he succeeds in those conditions, and Sri Lanka, when he plays for Sri Lanka, slightly goes wayward because like probably the role clarity, the burden of expectations are much higher on him when he wears that Sri Lanka jersey, because he has done well for CSK, so they expect him to do well for Sri Lanka as well. So Matisha, I think we'll just have to give him time, just back him wholeheartedly, because we saw where Malinga and how Maling ended his career. Right? When he got to that level where he knew what he was doing, like he didn't need any backing or anything. Just he would just sit with his bowling partner on a night before the World Cup final and plan out four absolutely world class overs at Virat Kohli and MS Dhoni in the World Cup final. So that's the level Lasith Malinga got in his career. So Matisha Patiran has a long way to go. We just need to back him. So yes, we have the variety, and like Megan said, we need this hit the deck kind of bowler as well. That's what Dushmant Chamir offered us, and Dilshan Madhushanka offered the left arm version of it. I just can't understand why Dilshan Madhushanka a bit slingy than Chamira, but still he's more of a hit the deck, and he has this what do you call it?
Regulation fast.
Higher arm, yeah, regulation and higher arm angle, right?
Yeah.
So I still can't understand why they've dropped Dilshan Madhushankar. Uh, that's just a mystery. Anyway, Indra Fernando, of course, yes, we have to give him, like, he had a great LPL, but if that's enough for him to get picked ahead of Dilshan Madhushankar, I see a big problem there. Like if there was a vacancy for a left-arm fast bowler and Winner Fernando had this same success in the LPL, like I would directly pick him without any question. But we didn't actually have a big vacancy for a left-arm fast bowler, and we had Dilshan Madhushankar, even though his LPL was not that great. So to replace Dilshan Madhushankar with Winner Fernando just because he had a great LPL, that's a big problem for me. And picking players based on LPL, see, it's again a balancing. Like the LPL is of course our best domestic T20 tournament, so we cannot pick players from any other tournament. That's the tournament that we have to look for if we are to fill up the vacancies that we have in our T20 squad. So I would look LPL performance as a place to pick players for the vacancies that we have, but not a place just to pick the. See, we just can't look at the. We just can't pick the 15 best performers of the LPL and send them to represent Sri Lanka. That's not the way it should be done. Like we had a squad, we played a World Cup. Yes, we've decided to let go certain senior players. Angelo Matthews is overlooked. They decided to drop DDS, Sadira. Those are the players they've decided to drop. Okay, now we have certain vacancies. Okay, they've decided to back Dasun Shanaka. They've decided to back the bowling attack as it is. They've decided to bat certain batters. Okay, now we have some vacancies. So who are the players who performed well in the LPL in those positions? That's how the selection has to be done. And of course, we'll have to look at LPL. There is, as I said, there is no other tournament for us to pick players from. So that's just the same way of looking at it. But yeah, so just to complete my question, bowling, the biggest weakness that I see apart from the hit the deck kind of fast bowler is a fast bowling all rounder. So fast bowling all rounder, what I mean is not the Dasun Chanaka or Chamindu Vikramasinghe. They are batting all rounders who can give you a few overs. Chamindu Vikramasinghe is a good bowler, better than Dasun Chanaka on potential, but I don't think he's still up there to bowl 4 overs in an international T20 against the world champions. So I don't think Chamari Athapaththu is yet there. So if he gets to play, he'll probably bowl 2 overs at max. If he does well, yes, they will give him the quota of 4. But I'm not sure if he'll start in the playing 11 for sure. I think they'll go with Dasun Chanaka, and if they feel Dasun Chanaka needs to be dropped, they might bring Chamari Vikramasinghe and give him a debut. But anyway, what I was coming to say was the biggest the weakness I am seeing is that we don't have a fast bowling all rounder. We have Vanidhu Asaranga, who's he's like a genuine all rounder, but still he can bat anywhere. And we have Dunit Velalage, who's more of a number 8 spin bowling all rounder, where we can bring him and strengthen the batting. But if we need to play, because it's very unlikely that we'll drop both Mahesh and Vanidhu, to play both of them. That's the most likely scenario. So if we have those two, there is no room for Dunit Velalage, especially on a track like Pallekele, where it's flat. So we'll have to play our frontline fast bowlers. So if Vanidhu is batting in the top 7, our number 8 would be Mahesh Tikshana. And in a T20, if your number 8 is Mahesh Tikshana, that's not that good. So I honestly, personally prefer a number 8 who can clear the boundary at will. So, and that's where we could have probably picked Chamika Karunaratne. Yes, he didn't have the best LPL, but selection is about filling the vacancies that you have and covering the skill gaps that you have, right? So if there is a gap in your skill set in the arsenal that you have in the squad, you need to find a player who can fill that skill set. Okay, forget Chamika Karunaratne. Let's say he has not done enough. You have Laitu Samarakon, who is a potential candidate for that. And in this LPL, so let's talk about that when we come to the LPL section. Isita Jayasuriya, he did well in the few games that he got. He is a capable bat who can bat at number 8. Probably not yet ready for international cricket, but if you are looking at players, here are 3 options: Chamika, Laitu Samarakon, Isita Vijayasuriya. So we need a fast bowling all-rounder who can bat at 8, because we are very unlikely to play Dunit Velalage at 8, because obviously, as I said, we are going to play Vanidhu Asaranga and Mahesh Tikshana. So that's the biggest problem that I see, apart from the batters, because I think Megan and Mark spoke about the batting issues. We just have picked players who did well in LPL and who have scored runs. We've not looked into the positions or the vacancies that we have, and I don't think they've actually looked at it in a holistic way or a composition point of view. They've just picked a bunch of batters who are informed. So anyway, even for bowling, I think we need a fast bowling all rounder, because both frontline spinners are must plays. Like, I don't think we can afford to drop Vanindu and Mahesh Tikshana.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that Chamika got dropped in the midway for Isita Vijayasuriya. I mean, he played well, but it's a shame that Chamika had to give way for him, because Chamika was showing some sort of potential, I feel, and could have been picked for the 2020I series with the way that he was performing initially. But I don't know, for some reason, the strikers decided to drop him, and then he was never given a chance again. So that's a big shame,
Isita
according
did
to
well.
me.
Yeah. But Isita did well, so let's
Isita
give it
did
to
well,
him.
but I mean, Chamika shouldn't have been the replacement. I feel it could have been someone else. I feel
Probably.
that's why 5 teams isn't enough. That's why I feel like this is the exact reason when we come to the LPL, we speak about that as well. But one more question before we come to the LPL, I'll ask Mark. Sanath Jayasuriya as interim head coach. Yes, he got that role, but do you think? I mean, there were other Sri Lankan cricketers who could have easily got that job, but I feel like it's politically involved and all that, but they decided to give Sanath Jayasuriya, who has no sort of experience in coaching, and he has 20 years of experience. He has worked with different coaches in his career, and he has that talent to coach this team. So, but your thoughts, like Sri Lankan Cricket Board has gone with Sanath Jayasuriya's interim head coach. Is that okay according to you for those two series that Sanath Jayasuriya becomes head coach? But your thoughts on that, Mark?
I can see all sides of this. I can see why people might think it's not a particularly inspired appointment in some ways, because he has no coaching background, he hasn't really expressed any desire to coach anyone other than when he was being asked to do this job. I also think though that actually Sanath plays quite a unique role in not just Sri Lankan cricket, but I think in Sri Lankan society as well, right? From all aspects of Sri Lankan society, he's a unifying figure in a way, and I kind of think that maybe after the World Cup and the kind of social media backlash that Sri Lanka, the team got, and the administrators and everyone around the team, somebody just said, you know what, let's just put Sanath, parachute him into the role, because essentially everyone loves him. I always think of him as like he's like the soul of Sri Lanka, right? Whenever he says something, we all know he's been wrapped up in controversy in the past, but those things seem to kind of be a bit Teflon on him in a way, right? And everyone kind of loves him. Everyone remembers what he does. He reminds us of a glorious time for Sri Lankan cricket. So I can kind of see why, as a short-term fix, he kind of ended up with it. Look, I wanted Ravi Shastri, or I still want Ravi Shastri to get the job. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that's like in the same way that I want, Jude Bellingham and Mbappe to be signed by Liverpool. It's just not going to happen, right? But I think maybe Sanath kind of, in some ways, has the same kind of, brings the same kind of energy that Ravi Shastri kind of brought to the India job, in terms of he could be a united figure. He could kind of get into the heads of the players a little bit and get them out of the kind of slump that they might be in. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it, I suppose.
And he can also bring in discipline. He said in the press conference that he's going to bring in a bit of discipline to the team, because we know what's been happening in the past. Like, Sanath is very strict when it comes to discipline, and I watched his videos and all in the past. So, and we know that Sanath has a very strict thing in terms of discipline and all, and also on that as well. But coming to like the coaching also, I just saw just today that Graham Ford actually resigned from Pretoria Capitals in the SA20, and we know he was the head coach of Galle Marvels. I'm not sure whether Graham Ford might be interested again to become Sri Lankan head coach. There could be a cycle again that Graham Ford could be in contention to become Sri Lankan head coach when he's resigned from franchise competition head coaches. Plus, he's been the Galle Marvels' current head coach as well. So, where do you think that Sri Lankan cricket might go ahead? Do you think it's time that we appoint a local coach, Mark, when we have like terms of Marwan Athapaththu, Tilan Samaraweera, and those kind of caliber coaches who can coach Sri Lankan cricket? Because we see in the women's right now, Champaka Ramanayaka is the head coach, and we see results that's happening with Rumesh Ratnayaka. Rumesh Ratnayaka being head coach of the Sri Lankan women's, and we are seeing results. And right now, do you think that we should go with a local coach right now, or should we go back to foreign coaches like what we did in the past 2 years or 3 years right now?
Look, I think what we all want is we want them to kind of talk to various different people who might want a job, ask them what their plans are when if they got the job, and how they intend to improve Sri Lanka cricket, what their vision for it is. I think every national side has a unique culture, a unique set of players, and a unique relationship with its fans. So they need to find somebody who's up for it. Some of the best coaches in the world are from Sri Lanka, right? Almost every other country in the world has some Sri Lankan in the backroom staff somewhere, right? So I don't think it's maybe in years gone by it's been is there anyone is there any Sri Lankan people, is there any locals who could do this job? I don't think that that's definitely not a consideration. I think it's we know that this bunch of players might be slightly difficult to work with, because there's been a few managers now who haven't got what they wanted out of them. We also know the administration around it can be slightly difficult as well. So
Exactly.
you've got to find somebody who's up for the job. You've got to find somebody who can make themselves available to go and be with the team. It's pretty much a full-time gig. Other countries aren't necessarily like that, and you're going to spend a lot of time in beautiful hotels around the world and not much time with your family. Like, I don't think it's as simple. Who can we find a local person to do this? Can we not find a local person to do this? The one thing I do not want to happen, and I'm pointing because I've got the women's game on the screen over here, so I don't want them to pull the women's setup over right now. Maybe after the World Cup, that might be a conversation that they have. But right now, don't tear that up, because that's going absolute great guns, and there's no point creating another crisis situation. So please don't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll do that anyways. I don't think they'll anyways ruin the women's setup that's going on right now. So hopefully that doesn't get touched right now. But yeah, I hope like Sanath Jayasuriya does his best as interim head coach. Let's see what happens. So let's go into the LPL review, and let's come with Adil first of all. So Jaffna Kings, as usual, wins their fourth LPL title, but they were really they were really close in that qualifier too, where they nearly lost to Candy Falcons in that match. But as usual, we know Jaffna, they have good owners. I think Jaffna Kings has been there for 4 seasons without changing owners. So that's a good thing for the league, that they've been pretty consistent. The Laika owners obviously have pretty much invested in the team. They got good players before in the auctions. We all said that, Jaffna and Colombo were the teams, who can actually contend for the LPL. And that's what happened this time around. Also, Jaffna gave a good competition. Bit disappointed with what happened with Colombo in the playoffs. But Adil, your thoughts, especially, Riley Rosuo having a brilliant tournament finals. He did really well. We saw the spat between Riley Rosuo and Barnuk, and, Riley Rosuo responded really well. But your thoughts overall? I mean, Pathum Nissanka got 100. Kusal Mendes performed in the latter stages when it was required. Kusal Mendes performed in the bowling side. We saw, Shadab Khan doing well. The overseas players really performed well in this LPL. We haven't seen in previous seasons that overseas players have been performing, but both the highest run scorer and the highest wicket scorer have been from overseas players. So that's a good sign, I feel, for the LPL in terms of overseas players being, the quality of overseas players being brought, because usually we question, the caliber of overseas players that LPL teams bring in. But this season, I don't think we can question, because, the overseas players have really stepped up when it was needed, more than the local players. And it's not easy for overseas players to, settle in Sri Lankan pitches and, perform all of a sudden in a league that runs only for 20 games. And your thoughts on how the LPL went as a whole, and also should we bring in a sixth team? We know that Candy Falcons right now was being run by SLC, a few members of Sri Lankan Cricket Board. That was a shame that they couldn't bring in a owner or whatever. But if we are having this much of instability in the team ownership of several teams right now, is it suitable to bring in a sixth team first of all, or should we all forget that and somehow bring in a sixth team, so that players like Dasit Cruz Pulle, Siobhan Daniel, few other emerging players, or even like players like Chamika and all, to get regular games, like play the entire season or whatever. So your thoughts on that, Adil?
Yeah. So I mean, okay. So there are two aspects, right? So you said if we, you asked if bringing in a six team would like increase the instability, insecurity, and all. But that's it. So there are two aspects. One is the organizing part, managing the franchises, bringing in owners, sponsors, the marketing, PR, filling up the stadium. So that's one part, which I think we are not the experts to talk about. So that's the duty of whoever the organizers are, IPG, Sri Lanka Cricket. So there are. It's not impossible to manage all this, right? There are strategies to do this. So let's keep it aside.
Yeah.
So just looking at it from a cricketing point of view. So what is the LPL for from a cricketing point of view? Yes, there are commercial goals as well, that it needs to be profitable and all of those. But keeping all those commercial goals and aims aside, looking at cricketing in a cricketing point of view, what it should be is it should bridge the gap between domestic cricket and international cricket for the Sri Lankan domestic players, not just young players, but also players who are above 25 and all, who can potentially play for Sri Lanka, uh, who needs the opportunity to prove themselves. So let's just okay. So when I talk about this, we directly compare our league with foreign leagues like IPL, PSL, or anything. So I'll just lay the ground on this and just try to make y'all understand what our domestic tournament actually, the standards of the domestic tournament actually is, right? So
Yeah.
we talk about our domestic tournament, and let's just take the most recent domestic T20 tournament. So that's 18 first class teams. So that's 18 clubs divided into 4 groups. Where 2 groups have 4 teams, and two other groups have 5 teams. So a team gets only 4 games, 4 or 5 games. Sorry, 3 or 5, 4 games in the group stage, and then the top two teams from each group play a quarterfinal, semi-final, final. So at max, you'll get 7 games, right? A player would get 7 games at max. So this is the domestic T20 tournament that we are talking about. And when was this played? Just before the LPL started, and that was the rainy season in Sri Lanka. So most of the games were rain shortened, and the states of wickets were really, really poor. So this is the tournament that we are expecting domestic players to perform and like show numbers and impress franchise owners to get picked in the auction. So 7 games, rain-shortened games on poor wickets. You can't expect even a top order batter to score at least 100, or at least a good T20 knockoff in excess of around 60, 70 with a good strike rate. So there were like a few knocks here and there, but I would say those are like probably the glitches, because probably the bowling attack was not that good, or the batter who scored was someone like Kusal Janit Pereira, who is obviously expected to massacre domestic bowlers given his ability and experience. So that's the level of domestic cricket that we are talking about. So there is enough skill. There is of course enough skill, but they don't have the opportunity to prove themselves. Then what's the next best option for them? I'm talking about T20 cricket. For 50 overs and first class, they have the National Super League. T20 cricket, what's the next option for them? It's LPL, and there are only 5 teams, limited number of spots. So if you talk about playing spots, it's 7 into 5, which is 35. So out of these 35, most of the spots go to these Sri Lankan national players. Let's give around 25 spots for them, because we have a pool of around 15 to 20 players, and we have some fringe players as well. So let's give around 25 for them, and 5 more spots are taken by players like Angelo Pereira, Chaturanga de Silva, Isuru Dana, Tisara Pereira, right? And then there are just 5 spots left. And then what? Sri Lanka cricket introduces a new rule saying there is a mandatory under 23 rule. So franchises are forced to give those 5 spots to under 23 players. And then what happens to the players who are above under 23 and who are not still? They are mostly fringe players who have done well for Sri Lanka A, who have represented Sri Lanka emerging, who have represented Sri Lanka under 19s 4 5 years ago, and who are regular players in their club teams, but they just get poor wickets, so they've not scored huge runs and all. So they don't get noticed by franchises, and of course there is not enough spots for them to get picked either. So even if they get picked in the auction, they won't. Since the lack of spots in playing 11s, they won't get to play. So I can give you a list of players: Ashem Bandara, Dhananjay Lakshan, Sonal Dinusha, Nimesh Vimukti. Most of these players only played 1 game at most. Nipun Dhananjay, Lahiru Samarakon. And
Even
there are
Rasik Kruspule didn't get a match, being the LPL 2023 emerging player.
emerging player, Lasik Kruspul. And there is another set of players who didn't even get picked in the auction. So these players, Kamil Mishara, he had a great domestic T20 tournament. Sohan Dilivera. I can go on telling names, but the point is, as you said,
Even Malsha Tarupati even didn't get.
Malsha Tarupati, I would not complain. He got his chances. He played around 3 4 games. He went for some runs, and then he was replaced by Kavindu Nadishan. That's all. Of course, if when you are given a run and if you couldn't impress that much, franchises, at the end of the day, they are corporate entities, right? They've invested money and they want their teams to win. So we
Yeah.
can't expect franchises to back young players as Sri Lanka cricket is expected to do, because Sri Lanka
Yeah.
cricket is a cricketing body who plays international cricket for, they have so many years to go, but these in corporate entities it's not their job anyway.
Yeah.
um, so of course, as you said, six team is a must, and because that will give more opportunities for the players. And just to wrap up the answer for my question, I was really happy with the quality of cricket in this tournament. The conditions were good. The quality of cricket that they played was good. As you said, foreign players performed well, and of course, we had like really, really good foreign players, uh, like really. I mean, hot shots, T20 hot shots like Glenn Phillips, Mark Chapman, Tim Seifert, Alex Hales, and all. So good LPL from a cricketing point of view, but has room to improve in terms of giving opportunities, and yeah, it has room in terms of giving opportunities.
Yeah. Let's come
I wanna
to
add something. I want to
yeah,
add
yeah,
something to it, Pawan.
yeah,
I really
definitely.
beg to differ with the fact that we need a sixth team in the tournament, because that again will it's more or less like making the tournament diluted. Because again, you're telling the players, you know what, if you didn't get a chance there, you're not encouraging them to fight for the place, but you're giving them a new old team. So that's not what I want to see in a league like Lanka Premier League, because IPL wouldn't have been IPL here if they played that cricket, that kind of cricket. So because if you look at that, uh, it's not like they didn't have enough chances or spaces in this tournament for the fringe players who we mentioned to play. A player like Dhananjay Silva has played 6 games and scored 47 runs. Why are we tolerating? Chaturanga Silva, Chaturanga de Silva is playing 5 games and batting ahead of Pawan Ratnayaka and scores
Mm.
what 13 runs, 14 runs. What are we looking at? Then where are we complaining, saying we need another team? Why are we
Yeah, that's the
complaining we need
problem.
another team? No, we
No,
need proper selection. And speaking of
100%.
franchises backing teams, we had a Sri Lanka cricket staff back team which did not back the youngsters, which
That's
did
what I
not
was trying
let
to
Pawan
come to.
Ratnayaka
Yeah.
play ahead of players like Chaturanga de Silva. So it's not a question of playing another team. I think we should choose wise, and we should stop being complacent when
Yeah.
it comes to cricket,
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
because
just
that
I
only
was going to
that
come to
is the
that
way that we
Candy
can.
Falcons point also. Yeah. On
yeah,
that.
Pawan, just let me
Yeah,
let me build on what Megan said. Megan, so I mean, you hit the nail on the coffin, Megan. I mean, absolutely right. But what I am trying to say is, SLC, neither SLC, of course, even their own HPC back team didn't select properly. So it's
no,
not
not
in
just
the
not just the youngsters, not just the youngsters, even players like
overall
I
selection.
that, that I think
Lairu.
that's the issue
Yeah,
with the under
exactly.
23
Lahirudar.
rule. I think. I think that's the issue with the under
No,
23
more
rule.
than the under 23 rule, like the selection issues. So those are actually uncontrollables even for SLC. So because this is franchise cricket, it's not a tournament run by their selectors or anything. So we can't actually go and complain about selection because it's franchises. They've given the complete authority to them, and no one is going to complain. Though no, I mean, see, if India want, they can complain CSK for playing MS Dhoni for all these years, right? I mean, so because that's completely out of their control. So the only thing I see SLC can do is add another team, and still, you know what? Still, uh, I honestly confident that there are enough players to take those spots. And even if we have a sixth team, we'll still end up saying, okay, there were some more players who didn't get chances, because I feel there is enough and more players to get the opportunity, and the selection problem will still remain. That's something I don't think
I
SLC
mean, you
can.
should push them for chances. You should push them for places. That's the case with Sri Lanka as a national team also for me. You don't pick a player who's batting at number 3 and scoring runs heaps and heaps and make him bat at number 5, saying, you're good, so come and just fill this spot. You make a number 5 batter who is performing less to go ahead, improve his game, and specialize to bat at number 5 for Sri Lanka. That's the kind of approach I think the world is taking entirely. So for LPL also, I'd say that is the kind of approach we should take. Yes, some point we need a sixth team, but didn't I mean, that's an argument that we can have whether we have enough number of players or not. But in terms of opportunities and in terms of number of players that could have done better in this particular tournament this year, I think we were just mismanaging players.
100%.
Can I
Like
can I can
mismanaged.
I just add one thing? I think it
Yeah.
needs a sixth team because I think there's not enough jeopardy in having five because four go
Yeah.
through. So I
Yeah.
think
Absolutely.
the competition just benefits because at the
Yes,
moment, right?
and
Look at like Gaul got to the final, but they started off terribly. I
that
think
was
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere
wow.
that you could get to the final, you could get into the knockouts by winning only two games if kind of things worked out in your favor, and you're like that's not to me that's not encouraging people to play positive cricket. I don't
And we
know
saw
about.
and we've
I
seen
think
that
with the
ESL and BPL and all starting with 6 teams itself, and LPL just started with 5 teams. It doesn't make sense if you are playing a playoff that we are not having 6 teams in the group stages and we are just having 5 teams in group stage.
or the other option is that you just three go through
Three go
to
through.
the
Yeah,
three go through and one goes straight to the final. Then you
I
have
think
an
Yeah,
that's
eliminator
that's
or
how
that's
that's
whatever
the
you
how
call
they
perfect.
do in
it.
the women's Premier League, Indian women's Premier League.
Yeah,
Only
that's the
three
thing.
qualify because they play five
Yeah,
teams.
But they
yeah,
want they because the problem is the reason why these things happen is because when you sell the rights, you go we'll have X we the Lanka Premier League will have 72 matches, however many it is, which is how you end up creating weird and more contrived ways to knock teams out or not knock teams out, basically.
yeah.
So,
I think the
but
IPL
also
method is very silly. Yeah,
yeah, I think that one of the bigger issues that needs to be talked about is the constant changing of ownership, right? Because if you look at like Patarana and Tichina and their trajectory through CSK and the way they were picked up as youngsters and developed over a number of years, I mean that's just not going to happen. I mean, Jaffna, in fairness, have done that, and they're basically the most consistent ownership group, right? And there's, with Veerskamp, we've seen that happen, and we saw that we're even teaching and a few other players as well. Where because everyone else is just chopping and changing owners the whole time, there's no consistency to it at all. So I think a lot of these issues with bringing players through, it means that the franchises are just always looking for a quick fix, aren't they? A lot of these issues would be ironed out if we had long term owners who had a long term strategy to make more money out of things, I think.
yeah. Coming to Shamigan, but your thoughts on the Candy Falcons team? Like you brought that up, obviously, but I don't get it. Like because yes, it was being owned by Sri Lankan cricket or whatever. But how come they are making Chaturanga this will play above Pawan Ratnaik? Because that match against Jaffna, if Pawan Ratnaik batted at number 6 or 7, they would have easily won that match against Jaffna Kings. So I don't know how they're handling emerging players, this under 23 players, because they're changing all of a sudden. This Candy Falcons team, they're changing the under 23 players. They're not giving them a consistent run, and then they are owned by a couple of people from the Sri Lankan Cricket Board as well, and still they can't find consistent. I don't get what this Candy team did also, and I also want to talk about. Dambula Sixers, because yes, Dambula Sixers finished last, but they, Chamindo obviously did well, performed really well in that franchise. Kusal Pereira had a good tournament. Mark Chapman also, but I don't know. I feel like Dambula Sixers had a lot of potential to go the playoffs or whatever. I feel they missed a big chance of being last, and Candy just took the advantage. Your thoughts on both these teams and how they perform, Shamingar?
Yes, again, Candy. I think we've touched on that matter. I think the use of the under 23 player, it was just bizarre, and I don't think even if you question the very people who made the choices, they would have an answer for it, because it was just baseless and exploiting that rule. Because player like Kamido Patiratna, uh, he could open the batting and open the bowling, and you'd be surprised when I say that, because no one saw it. And if he couldn't even bat at number 5, 6, 7 at least, I mean, then what's the point in picking him into the team? So that's the kind of approach they took, and I really don't have an answer for that, Pawan, because I don't know. I don't think even the people who selected the team, who made those choices, would have an answer for it. They just exploited that rule. But Damul, again, after seeing the first few games, I honestly thought Damul would make it to the finals. and with players like Mark Chapman, players like Mohammad Nabi leading. And I think even though they did not qualify to the finals, or even though they finished last, I think they did a great deal to the tournament, LPL, more than what Candy Falcons did for me, in my
Yeah.
point of view. For
Mm.
the cricket in Sri Lanka, and for a Sri Lankan based tournament, they brought in a lot of excitement. They brought in a lot of experience, and they gave good games. For example, there was a game where Chamindu and Mark Chapman scored and took the game out of the pit. That kind of game, I spoke about this with Adil in one of his shows, because that kind of game does a world of good for a cricketer like Chamindu Wickramasinghe. And I don't think that if not for that game, he would have been in the Sri Lankan squad today. Because as I mentioned, how often do these players play under lights? Let alone good wickets. How often do they play under lights? But in T20 cricket all around the world is just played under lights always. So that is the kind of thing that we are going in Sri Lanka. And when a player of that sort, that backing, comes into a team like Dambulla and plays alongside Mark Chapman, gets the experience from Mohammad Nabi,
Yeah.
I think that's a world of good for Sri Lanka cricket, even
Mm.
if they win it or not.
Absolutely.
So
I
that's my
agree.
take on Dambulla's performance in this LPL, because I think they did more good for Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan cricket than Candy Falcons themselves did.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the ownership came late also, and they had only a limited time to obviously set up the squad. And then I think Chamindu Wickramasinghe wasn't even picked in the auctions. He was picked as a late replacement for a player, whatever, and then came in the squad. And then immediately, the coaches gave him, Rangana Herath was the head coach, and then Tilana Kandambe batting coach, and all. They only gave him the chance to play. So it was good to see, him playing. And then obviously the overseas players were very stacked in the Dambula. They had Riza Hendricks, they had Mark Chapman, now Mohammad Nabi, obviously captain the team. Then they had very good overseas players who came. Tawheed
Yes.
Hidroy played a bit. So, but
Mustafiz.
yeah, even Mustafiz. But the only problem I have coming to Adil is that they were shuffling the overseas players and they were not sure of their playing 11, the Dambula team. That is the reason why I feel like they ended up last, because they were not sure compared to Colombo or Jaffna or whatever. They weren't sure of the playing 11 of the team. Like they were constantly changing the team and shuffling the team. Adil, your thoughts on that, on Dambula? Was that the reason that they couldn't go to the playoffs?
Uh, Probably, but I think they maybe have had some injury concerns as well, with because they didn't play Mustafiz towards the end. But anyway, I think that has been a common problem with all five LPL franchises, not just this season. Because one thing, of course, I think the scheduling is a bit tough on them, because there are back-to-back games close by, so they need to manage their workloads. That's probably one thing. But what I feel is lacking with most of these LPL teams when it comes to selection, consistency in selection, not just consistency, being strategic, and yeah, being strategic in selection, is that they're not yet equipped with the data analytics like the other franchises around the world. Because let's take an IPL franchise for example. I mean,
Yeah.
they scout players from very unheard places. Like they identify South African talent even before cricket South Africa. They've picked young South African players like Marco Jansen, even Lungi Ngidi played for CSK way before he played for South Africa. They bring in like Australian players. So I mean, that's the level of scouting, and that's the level of planning, and things that goes behind the doors in a professional team, not just franchises but also international teams. But LPL teams, I don't think that's happening. That was very clear, the way, I mean, if you look at the way how the auctions went. So I think that's the reason most of these LPL teams, they are not well equipped with that area. So that's why, I mean, we don't, sometimes we can't just rationalize the thinking behind certain selections, like Megan was saying, sending Dhananjay, persisting with Dhananjay Silva at number 6, batting Chaturanga De Silva ahead of Pawan Ratnayaka. And I also think there is another pressure on the LPL franchises. I think Jaffna faced it a lot this time, even though they ended up winning. They had to play all the Sri Lanka players. I think
Mm.
that was something that was told to Avishka Gunardhan and the management. We just want to see them play all the games. So Kusal Mendis, despite failing He kept on playing. Eventually, he had a good game. And who did they bench to play Kusal Mendis, Pathum Nisanka, Avishka, Dhananjay? They benched Nishan Madhushka, who is in the form of his life, who has who has scored a lot of runs in domestic cricket in the recent games with good strike rates. So I think that pressure is also on these franchises. If there is a Sri Lankan international like Dhananjay Jedisilva, just play him, give him in the 11. I'm not sure, but I'm just assuming there is some pressure because they just persist with them. That's why I said out of the 35 spots, these 20 to 25 Sri Lankan national always end up playing in the playing 11 despite them being out of form or anything. But you won't see that in the IPL, right? Even though you've played a lot of games for India, if you're failing in that season, you'll be benched and some random domestic player would come and replace you. So probably those are the reasons: lack of planning and the pressure to play international cricketers, national stars, in their positions despite having good international cricketers or youngsters, and then of course the scheduling just to manage the workload.
Yeah. Coming to Mark, Mark, your thoughts on the Colombo Strikers team, because they had a very power-studded team. I feel they had Matish, obviously. They had Glenn Phillips. They brought Glenn Phillips, Sharab Khan, Bramula Gurbas opening. Then they had some good emerging players also. I mean, Shevon Daniel was playing a few games. Then we saw, even now this Isita Vijay Sundara playing a few games. I mean, he was one of the outstanding players, I would feel, coming from the emerging set, I would feel. And I mean, uncapped players. And also, I mean, Chamika Karunaratne played the first few games, and as we I discussed with Adil, very unfortunate for him to miss out after. I mean, he was decent in few games, he was inconsistent in another few games, but then he lost his spot. But your thoughts on the Colombo Strikers, and they obviously lost in the eliminator match to Candy Falcons, which I didn't expect. I thought Colombo will either go to the finals or the qualifier too. But your overall thoughts on the Colombo Strikers team?
Yeah, I thought going into it, I thought they were one of the stronger squads. I think some of the decision making around the 11 that played was at points kind of a bit strange. I also think it's just so obvious. I know Adil just talked about this, but it's so obvious that they're just not using data, and there's no matchups or anything like that happening. So there was a few games where they let get away from them that they've definitely got enough talent to have won this. I think you could broadly put there's kind of three teams where you like these teams are either going to boom and be absolutely amazing, or they're going to go absolutely bust, right? I thought Gaul and Candy were the two teams that could have sailed all the way through and won it if their players had got into the right groove, and depending on what the kind of culture was like around the team. We saw that when Candy won it the previous iteration, where everyone just seems to be having a great time and they seem to be enjoying it. And then there's another batch, which I include Colombo in, which were like, these are just kind of solid squads. If they can get things right and get things going, then they can definitely win. Again, I think it goes back to this whole issue around kind of ownership and not knowing, and also the structure of the tournament where you don't need to win a huge amount, so you don't need to get players into kind of making sure that they're in good form. You just need to kind of win the odd game to make sure you don't get knocked out, and then it kind of boils down to 2 or 3 games at the end of the show. Again, I just think they got a bit unlucky. They could have easily have won it. We could be talking about a whole different situation. It is good though that we've had the strikers in for 3 years. That's pretty consistent.
2 years,
2 years, right?
2 years.
2 years. Is it 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay.
They came last season.
Yeah.
But coming to Adil, Gol Marvels actually had a very interesting concept. I've seen their videos on Instagram and all. Mark. Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for coming, Mark. Yeah,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. See you. Yeah. So we'll be
Mark.
discussing one more question on LPL and then get into the Women's Asian Cup and end it. So Mark, coming to you. Adil, coming to you. So talking about Gol Marvels, obviously we saw some interesting concepts from them. Obviously, them bringing them bringing different awards at the end, and the owner been very enthusiastic and all. And we've seen a couple of Insta videos on how they're approaching, and the head coach and all also Chamari Athapaththu and all, Graham Ford, and obviously assistant coach Chamari Athapaththu, they're very into the team and all. We saw some good chemistry between the team players and the coaches as well. So Your thoughts? Yes, Gall Marvels had a very poor start, but Tim Seifert had a brilliant tournament, by the way, scoring runs and performing really well. Came the finals. Bhanuka really stepped up, and bowling line. I mean, Thikshan had a very good tournament, obviously being the most economical bowler as well. And then Isuru Dana, although he went for 100,000, as we were saying in the auctions, it's ridiculous. He had a pretty good tournament, and their fielding was really good. We had to talk about the fielding standards of Gall Marvels. Was really really good. What I've been seeing in the tournament, marvelous. So your thoughts on the Gall Marvels?
Yeah, God Marvels. I mean, from the day they took over the franchise, I think they announced themselves around 2-3 months before the LPL auction,
Yeah.
and they from PR to, like, I mean, they've done a lot of things right, except for a few. I mean, eye racing stuff here and there. For example, couple of buys at the auction, but apart from that, they've kind of they've been a complete franchisee, I would say. I mean, the PR game on social media has been on point, and they even brought in the analyst who works for Kolkata Knight Riders. But unfortunately, he was not with the team during the LPL. He was there in the auction table picking the squad, but I think he's working with Los Angeles Knight Riders these days during in the MLC. So he was not part of the golf franchise during the LPL. But anyway, so they've had a lot of bases covered. Uh, they've brought in Graham Ford, Anton Rue, like foreign coaches, and Chamari Athapaththu with some local knowledge, and he knows most of the players in their squad because he coached for most sports club for several years before he migrated. So they probably covered all bases. And when it comes to performance as well, they look like a team who kind of had done proper analysis. They had a strategy. I think their playing 11 was pretty much the same. Like, they didn't tinker a lot. They started by giving the opportunity to Malsha Tarupati. He got 3 to 4 games, and then they replaced him with Kamindra Nadishan. He did really, really well. And the middle order, they stuck with Banuka, Jani Tulenige, Sanath Jayasuriya, even though like they were not that consistent. They gave them opportunities, and of course their foreign players, even Zahur Khan, who they picked and back. I mean, for me, at the beginning, I was like, why did they go for a associate player like Zahur Khan when they had the opportunity to go for better overseas fast bowlers who were available in the auction? But Zahur Khan did, like, better than expected. He actually did well in the death. And Isuru Dana, I was actually doubting whether he'll perform because he only turns up for LPL and plays the domestic T20 tournament, and that's all cricket he plays since probably the last 2 or 3 years. And he proved that he had 1 or 2 bad gives, but apart from that, he proved that he still got the quality that he used to have 4 or 5 years ago. So all in all, I think Gall Marvels, even though they ended up second best, they had a decent season. And of course, even the team management. So they've also bought Morutu Marvels in the Lanka T10 league, which will probably be played this December. So I feel like they are like into this business with some plans where they want to actually uh, sustain in this sports kind of business, and have probably expand their franchisee to other leagues as well. I don't know, but they seem to have the potential. They seem to have the interest, definitely. So one good season. We've seen a lot of franchises coming and have a good first seasons. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Let's hope they don't just hang up their shoes in the next season. Hope they
Definitely.
continue for a few more years, not a few more years,
No,
many
forever.
years coming forward. Yeah, and yeah, that's about God Mouse.
Yeah. And come to Shamigan, let's talk about the champions. Obviously, Jaffna Kings, it's a team that, I don't know what to say. I mean, the owners are into it, and, they obviously had a pretty good auction, I would feel, getting some brilliant overseas players. And, Rai Rosuo, Azmatullah Matsai, then they had Noor Ahmad, but then Noor Ahmad had to play the Texas Super Kings in the MLC, so then they had to replace him with Tabrez Shamsi. Even Tabrez Shamsi couldn't have a place in the playing 11. So I mean, it's a pretty good squad that they had this time around. Jaffna Kings, the Sri Lankan players were stacked. Obviously, Charith Asalanka given the captaincy for the first time. Tisera Pereira leaving the franchise, and Tirana Kandame no longer head coach. It was Avishka Gunawardhan as the head coach from under 19. Head coach is the right now the under 19 head coach also. Are they not anymore? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I mean, so they had a pretty good squad, Shamigan. So your thoughts on the Jaffna Kings? It's for me, it's no surprise that they won, but they had a pretty good squad this time around, and I feel like they deserve it with the picks that they picked. And Nishan Madushka even didn't get a chance because obviously they wanted the openers to play, and that's what I think Adil brought up the point on the SLC being focused on the players, the current players getting chances to play all the matches. But anyways, your thoughts, Shamigan?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, all four of us, we've been talking a lot about the Jaffna franchise, and it was showing that consistency is key, right? Because players like Mendish, players like Pathum, players like Charita Salanka, they've been with the franchise for a while. They know the culture there. So when you put and
Mendes,
even
Mendes
player
and Pathum
even
are
a
new, right? Mendes and Pathum are
Mendish,
new to Jaffna, I think. Mendes and Pathum are
yeah,
new to
I mean,
Jaffna. Charit and
with
Avishka
the
have been
LPL,
there.
Charita and Avishka, and of
Yeah,
course the LPL,
Dhananjay. Yeah.
they are all especially working with Avishka.
Hmm.
These players playing working with Avishka because uh, they were all under Avishka when he was uh, with the developing and the under 19
New
sides
team.
back then, and so I think Jaffna, more or less, as you mentioned, Pawan, you almost mentioned everything that the
Yeah,
franchise has done right already
yeah,
in the tournament. So one thing that stands out for me is the pick of players like fringe players and not playing them. That's the only thing that was a drawback for me. Uh, the case of Nishar Madushka and the case of Lairu Samarakon. But yeah, Adil answered why what the reason was. Having to play Sri Lankan mainstays and all that.
yeah.
Uh, but one takeaway that they can be proud of as a franchise, apart from the wins, because they have won enough in LPL, so this will just stack up their cabinet. But one big takeaway that they can take is a player like Vyas, because
Mm.
the way he played, the way he handled the tournament, and the way he has taken the Sri Lankan flag forward. So I think the credit goes to a franchise like Jaffna for that. And
But I
we are
mean,
just we were just gonna.
VS Khan didn't have a good tournament though this time. I think he had a pretty under par tournament, although he played all the matches, though he didn't
I
have
think
a
I
very
think
good.
I think Vyas Kant again. It's the way we perceive it, right, Pavan? Because Vyas Kant, the role he plays is not as a wicket taker here, probably. Because
Okay.
when he goes to a Hyderabad team, I think he's given a set of roles. This is what you're gonna do. These are the matchups that you're gonna bowl against, and this is what we expect. But when he come, that was the case. I wanted to mention, but even with Matisha Patirana, if you look at Matisha Patirana, he was caught as a wicket taker, no, as a contender.
Yeah.
So if you look at the economy column of Vyas Kant, then he has done a job for them. And also when a player like Vyas Kant comes up, and if it's a bowling unit, and if he does not have a backing, I don't think anyone can survive. Not just Vyas Kant, even Vanidu Asuranga won't survive without a backing. So I think other than that, the player that they have groomed as Vyas Kant, because looking him seeing him in the field, the way he carries himself, the way he works with the team, how he imparts his knowledge. I think that's the takeaway for Jaffna, and that's what is expected from a team in a franchise league like LPL.
Mm, absolutely. Adil, your thoughts on the power blast that happened this season? Do you think that was a success for the LPL this time around, or your thoughts on that?
I think I'll still stick to my initial thoughts about Power Blast. When it was introduced before the tournament started, I just thought, okay, it's a good initiative. I mean, at least they tried something. I was thinking that it should have been a flexible option for the batting team to pick when they want it, probably after
Mm,
the 10th over. yeah, probably more, not probably, definitely after the 10th over. And they should have given like a restriction, like a cutoff, say, okay, you need to take it before the 17th or 16th over, otherwise it will like automatically apply at the 17th and 18th or 16th and 17th. But instead what they did was like they went with a fixed number of overs, like 16 and 17 are going to be your power blast overs. So I'm not a fan of that, and I feel like it was the case. Like sometimes teams were not in a position to kind of go after the bowling in the 16th and 17th, depend because of the game situation. Maybe they would have
Yeah.
lost some wickets. Maybe they were not chasing a huge target, or any could be anything. And or maybe that they didn't have the necessary batters in the middle during that time. Of course they knew 60th and 70th will be the power blast, so they could have planned it better, but still uh, don't think it was a huge success, and I don't think they should scrap it as well in the next season. They've
Yeah.
introduced it with some intention for sure. So I
Yeah.
think they should kind of think it, probably give the option to the batting team to pick it whenever they want during the 10th and 17th over, and see
Absolutely.
how it goes in that season. If it still doesn't produce intended result, then they might as well just scrap it. But it's a good initiative. They're trying to do something, but I think it needs this tinkering going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And Adil, I want to come to you as well, because on this Cricket Info article that went viral on, and many people are criticizing on that, but there is some truths on that as well. But this article, who is the Lanka Premier League, actually from Andrew Field Fernando, that
Yes.
article on this. Your thoughts on it overall, reading it, and there is some bit of truth on that, but you think like the way that he wrote it could have been a bit better, I feel, because it's not good for the like the representation of LPL, and for the Sri Lankan cricket fans also seeing like these sort of articles coming in. But anyways, your thoughts on that, Adil, first of all?
Yeah, I read that article, but I think it's hard hitting truth. But again, it's the non-cricketing aspect of the league that is mostly spoken of, which is consistency of franchises, fan bases, stadiums filling up with fans, sponsorships, and those things, right? And the timing, of course, because at this point of time, anything about Sri Lanka men's cricket won't have a good impression, or doesn't matter how good it is. People are not that happy with the team because of, especially because of the poor performance in the World Cup and the things happening around it. So the timing was not that ideal. So so mostly it's non-cricketing aspects about the league which was highlighted in that article. But I mean, if you just focus on cricket, as I said, the from a cricketing point of view, apart from the selection issues, youngsters probably not getting the deserving chance, and a bit of strategical decisions, I think the quality of cricket was good. The this what do you call, the conditions were good and all those stuff. But this article solely focuses on the non-cricketing organizing, PR, and stuff like that. So I think everything, all issues regarding the non-cricketing side has been told without any sugarcoating or without anything. So I think that's fine. I mean, he has spoken the hard truth, and I hope Sri Lanka Cricket and IPG will work on improving those aspects, because doesn't matter how good cricket you play. At the end of the day, it all sums up to how well you market it, how much revenue you generate out of it, and how well how well it's presented to people, right? Because
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
are living in a commercial world and all that. So I think that article mainly focuses on that area.
Yeah. Coming to Shamigan, obviously we know that the Sri Lanka Cricket and IPG have signed a 10-year contract, but now already 5 seasons have been done on the LPL. Do you think the IPG group are doing justice to the LPL by organizing this tournament and doing it in a successful way, or do you think like there should be another, probably Sri Lanka Cricket Board should handle it on their own somehow and organize this league? But we know what happened back in 2012 when the SLPL happened, and after that corruption and all happened, and that stopped the SLPL as well. So Your
But I think
thoughts on?
SLPL was also done by a third party team, right? I mean, not IPG, but some other
Not IPG.
company.
But
Not
yeah, it
IPG,
was
Okay,
but some.
okay.
wasn't entirely SLC.
Yeah, not okay.
But yeah, see, the end goal should be Pawan to get it to SLL, Sri Lanka cricket's control, because that's the only way we can eliminate major issues. About the opportunities, all the things, almost all the things that we discussed here. That's the only way that we can eliminate. But I'd give kudos to Samantha Dorangala and the entire crew, because after several years that we could not put up a tournament together, being a prominent cricketing nation, we've been able to put up a tournament together for 5 consecutive years, and that's a win. See, if not for LPL, again, as I mentioned, why I mentioned Vyaskhand as the takeaway for Jaffna is, finding players and bringing out players of that caliber is the goal of a franchise league. At the end of the
Yeah,
day, yes, while doing this, the cricket should be exciting, the cricket should be promoted in this country, and franchises should make money. All those things, yes. But for me personally, I think the main goal is that, and that has been served for the
yeah,
last 5 years. We've
definitely.
seen several players, Janit Lenage, Vyaskan, then even Chamindra Wickramasinghe from this season.
Even
So
even
we've
Mahesh
seen players.
Theekshana,
Ice
even Mahesh
Theekshana,
Theekshana.
those people got a boost from this tournament. So I think that is serving that purpose, but it could be done better.
Yeah. Also, Adil, I want to just discuss on this as well before coming to Women's Asia Cup. Now, obviously, we are playing LPL in 3 stadiums, and obviously, I don't know what's going to happen to Jaffna now. There's plans like they're going to build a cricket stadium or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen over there, but at least there's Hambantota. In Gaul, don't you think like the Gaul cricket stadium they could put floodlights and play night matches, because it would benefit the Gaul fans as well. We know there's so much enthusiasm in Gaul, and we know the franchise team is always going to go out before LPL starts and does some parties and does some festival or whatever to the Gaul fans. Don't you think that LPL should go to Gaul, and somehow Sri Lankan Cricket Board has to invest on putting floodlights and ensuring that 2020 matches happen in Gaul as well, because it would be good also, guys. Obviously Gaul is a hub for tourism. Obviously that you can attract crowds also. And I know Gaul International Cricket Stadium has only been used for test matches, but don't you think for the LPL's sake that they could play 2020 matches in Gaul as well, and just to install floodlights? I know it will cost money, obviously, but I think Sri Lanka Cricket Board obviously gets revenue from obviously playing international matches and all that. Don't you think that the LPL should go to Gaul as well, and perhaps Jaffna also one day? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the eventual goal should be for the LPL organizers should be to adapt the home and away format which IPL operates, right? So you have a home stadium for each team, and then you play at home, you go away. So I think that should be the eventual goal. When it will happen is a big question. It will take a long time for sure. It won't happen in at least the next 5 years. It won't happen. I don't see it happening, because we need to like have stadiums first of all in some of the cities where we have franchises from. So Jaffna doesn't have a stadium. Yes, Gaul, they have a stadium. Like they have one of the world's most iconic stadiums. uh, adding floodlights to Gaul, I'm not sure if that's going to be like a long term investment, because LPL just happens only probably 3 weeks of the year, right? And of course, yeah, I mean, Gaul, a lot of cricket is happening in Gaul. Gaul has one of not one, around 2 to 3 of Sri Lanka's most prominent schools cricket teams. So they, even teams like that can benefit if they have a venue with floodlights in their city, so that they don't have to come to Colombo all the time, or they, even though they have Hambantota, which is also around 1.5 hours from Gaul. So with the
Yeah,
highway, it's still probably the same time for them to get to Colombo or either Hambantota. Maybe Hambantota is a bit close. I don't
I
know. I'm
think it's
not sure.
close. I think it's a bit close.
Close,
Yeah,
but probably,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But still, of course, yes, they have the Hambantota option. So I think I just can't straight away answer that question, because that needs some like, feasibility study done, and there's a lot of pre-work which needs to be done if they are to take such a decision. But I like the idea. Definitely, it's a good idea. If the Gaul Stadium can be floodlit, there will be a lot of people who will benefit from that. not just the LPL franchise. As I said, the school cricket is in Gaul. There's Richmond College, Mahinda, St Aloysius,
They
and
could
few
have
more.
night matches. They could have night
Of
matches
course,
and
yeah,
play matches in Gaul as well, rather than going to Hambantota and traveling, then wasting time, I
yeah,
would feel.
of course, yeah. I like the idea. So that's it. So it's something the organizers needs to consider. And as I said before, the eventual goal should be home and away. So with that in mind, if I mean, adding floodlights to goal is like the short-term goal in that long-term plan. Of course, why not? Yeah,
Yeah. And also, as you said, also Jaffna, I don't know when they're going to take the trophy back to Jaffna, but it has never happened in the 4 times they won. I hope at least this time the team can go to Jaffna, but I don't think that will also happen with this Indian series starting just this week right now. Such a shame.
certainly. Of course, yeah. I mean, uh, yes, it's a tight schedule. They probably the overseas players have other commitments, so they have to just leave. But anyway, I hope at least before the next LPL season starts, they just do it, because fan interaction, this home fans and team bonding and this connection, that's very important. And let's we just can't look beyond in the IPL, because fan following for IPL teams is just in a different level.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's talk a bit on the women's cricket before ending it. I think we've already gone past the 1.5, but we'll still talk a bit, like 5 to 10 minutes on the women's Asia Cup going on. So right now, I think they're playing the Thailand women's team and Sri Lankan women's right now 19-0 after 3.2. But let's talk about coming to Shamingan. Chamari Athapaththu, really, really good performance against Malaysian women's. She scored 100. Third 2020I century. I saw a fact that, in the men's 2020I in 1,600 plus innings, they've only scored, batters have only scored two 2020I centuries. But Chamani Athapaththu, in her career, she scored three 2020I innings. I think she's the best women's cricketer produced in Sri Lanka. And, by far, I don't know. I mean, last 2 years have been brilliant for Sri Lankan women, especially the past year since Rumesh Ratnaik has been head coach. I think brilliant results have been coming along. Now Sri Lankan women have gone to the semi-finals once again. In the Women's Asia Cup, we've been seeing good performance from others also. When Chamari fails, we've seen Vishmi Gunaratne stepping up in that match against Bangladesh, and Harshita Samaravikrama been performing well as well. And also we've been seeing the bowlers also taking good wickets as well. So it's good to see, that the team is performing well, especially especially Priyadarshini also picking, I think, number 4 right now in the rankings in the women's 2020 bowling rankings also. So very good news. So your thoughts on all that so far from Sri Lankan women's team?
See, Chamari is in another league, not just in Sri Lanka, all around the globe. You mentioned that she's the best batter produced by Sri Lanka, but I think she's one of the best batters produced all around women's cricket on earth, because she could stand par with any men's cricketer and face until at least a good under 19 setup. She could play with them, and she's proved it time and time again. But as an whole, I think Sri Lanka women's cricket is bearing fruit from the work that they put in. Pawan, I think this is a very good example for the men's team itself, because if you take 5 years back, we weren't one of the we weren't even considered as one of the good teams going around in women's cricket. But
Yeah,
that is basically because we did not have enough cricketers playing the sport in the country.
yeah,
And that's when a team was put together by SLC, led by Miss Apsari Tilakaratna, Ashan Tilakaratna's wife. She was the convener. I'm not sure
yeah.
if she's still the convener of women's cricket in Sri Lanka, but that team was put together, and they started promoting cricket all around the country into these small schools. And that's when players like Kavisha Dilhari, even Vishmi, that's when those people started stepping up. And in a culture where, girls played the cricket until they are done with school, and then the social barriers and the what do you call these cultural barriers took them away from the sport from a time like that. Players started sticking to the sport, and club structures were put in. Those things were done 5 6 years back. And I think when you factor it in with a coach like Ramesh Ratnaik, who would ask anyone who's just sitting, don't you want to play for Sri Lanka? Just go practice. That's the kind of coach he is. He wouldn't be like, don't you want the money? Don't you want the glamour? Don't you want that? Not that. Just play for Sri Lanka. Just go practice. That's the kind of coach Ramesh Ratnayake is. So when you factor that person in, this is the result that you get, Pawan. And I think more than anything, it's the good work that they put 5 6 years back, and also the players maturing. And I think the average age of Sri Lanka women's team is about quite close to 30, I think, because all of them have been in the scene for a long while. And now we are bearing the fruit, because when you compare any other team around the world, Sri Lanka has one of the set of oldest cricketers in terms of women's cricket. So I think that experience is counting in majorly. Also compare it when you factor in the youngsters like Vishmi, Harshita, and Kavisha taking up charge. Well, you only expect good results.
Yeah, I think the bowlers are very experienced also for the Sri Lankans. I think even
Even the
we
entire
were
team,
speaking.
entire team is very experienced. They are all about 30. Most of them are above 30, and they have been in the scene for a long, long while.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to Adil, I mean, your thoughts also so far. I mean, they've been performing really well. As we were mentioning, Chamari, no doubt one of the best, as we were saying, and she was picked in the women's CPL also. Sangakkara was praising Chamari as well, and I think we have a good future. I mean, with Hashan Tilakaratne, we didn't see this much of good results from Sri Lanka, but when they appointed Umesh Ratnayake, I think there's some sort of good chemistry between Chamari and the players, and with Rumesh Ratnak, I don't know, somehow the Sri Lankan women have been performing really good. Beat England in a 2020 series, then did well against South Africa in ODI match, won that match. A record chase, by the way, 300 plus. I don't think any team has done that. And now Women's Asia Cup, I think last time around they went the finals in the 2020 edition. So a lot of good results from the Sri Lankan women's event. Right now, I think they are on the path to qualify for the 2027 ODI World Cup, where they could qualify even for the 2023 ODI World Cup, which is why they changed the coaches as well. So your thoughts over the last 2 years, the phase that Sri Lankan women's cricket has been going through?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, Rumesh Ratnak. I just want to say something about Rumesh Ratnak as well. I mean, I've not met him personally or anything like that, but just looking at as a cricket fan, looking at the stints that he has coached the Sri Lanka men's cricket team, he has never
Yeah,
been like a permanent coach, but he has done several stints as interim coach. The best I can remember is the Sri Lanka T20 series that we won in Pakistan under Dasun Shanaka. So that was a second string Sri Lanka team. I think the head coach at that time was Mickey Arthur, I guess.
Mickey Arthur, I
Mickey
think.
Arthur,
Yeah,
2019. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
or the one before Mickey Arthur.
Chandrika Hathur Singh,
Not
Hathur Singh.
Chandrika,
It
not
was Atul
Chandrika.
Singh, I think. It
Yeah.
wasn't it
Anyway,
Atul Singh?
I think it
uh,
was under Hathur Singh. It was under Hathur
It
Singh.
was Atul Singh.
So
probably,
Atul
probably,
Singh
yeah.
didn't want to
So
travel to
exactly,
Atul Singh didn't want to travel to Pakistan.
want to
yeah,
travel.
yeah,
Yeah. So whoever the
yeah,
head coach at that time was didn't want to travel to Pakistan.
yeah.
Lasith
It was
Maling,
Hathur Singh.
a lot of senior players, including Lasith Maling, who was the captain at that time of the T20 team, didn't travel to Pakistan. So a team led by Dasun Shanaka and coached by Rumesh Ratnayake, they went to Pakistan. They beat the world. Pakistan were world number one, the world number one T20 team at that point. So they beat them 3-0. They did quite well in the ODI series. So whenever he has had stints with Sri Lanka cricket, Sri Lanka men's cricket team, he has done well. And now he got his like proper full time gig with the Sri Lanka national team, with the women's team, and he has produced great results. Like the hike or the spike of the graph is like immense. From like Megan said, few years ago we were not even considered as contenders for at least even an Asia Cup, but now like we qualified for a Asia Cup final just 2 years ago, and even here now we are already in the semi-finals, and we'll be facing Pakistan as the favorites to win that semi-final and qualify to the finals. So great improvement. And even the last ODI World Cup, I think it was still Rumesh Ratnayak who was the coach. I'm not sure, but anyway, that the reason why we couldn't qualify was not actually cricketing reasons. So
Yeah,
Sri
COVID
Lanka women's
reasons.
team, yeah, during COVID, so we didn't play any international games for a long time, and that
Yeah,
took a hit in our rankings, and we were quite down in the rankings. And the only chance we got to qualify for the World Cup was doing well in the qualifiers. Even the qualifier tournament didn't go ahead as planned because there was another COVID wave or some reason due to
Yeah,
some
there was
Sri
reason.
Lankan
outbreak
players.
again during the
There
World Cup.
was COVID again, right? During the World Cup qualifiers. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
qualifiers didn't go ahead.
We had to
They just,
return home.
yeah, they just scrapped the tournament and they sent the
And
teams
then they
back home.
went with the rankings.
And yeah, they just made the higher ranked team qualify for the World Cup, and that's how I think Bangladesh, probably
Yeah,
Bangladesh or maybe
Bangladesh went.
Pakistan.
Yeah, Bangladesh
Yeah,
went. Yeah.
someone went in, and we didn't make the cut, unfortunately. And since then, everything has been going good for the Sri Lanka women's cricket. As you said, like great wins in overseas tours, South Africa, England. We beat New Zealand at home, and recently beat West Indies. Doing well in the Asia Cup. So I'm really, really excited for the upcoming T20 World Cup in Bangladesh. It's going to be in familiar conditions. Most of the games will be played in Sylhet and Dhaka. Uh, Spinning conditions, and our bowling attacks main strength is our spinners. We have a lot of variety in terms of spin. We have left arm spin, right arm off spin. We have a 15-year-old ambidextrous wrist spinner. So
Yeah.
that's I think that's a first in world cricket, be it men's cricket or women's cricket. We have seen ambidextrous spinners, but not ambidextrous wrist spinners.
Legs, wrist
So
spinners.
yeah, so some great variety in terms of bowling. Batters are doing great. Chamari, of course, is leading the team so well. So I'm really looking forward. Even though we are in a tough group, I think we'll compete well, and we'll come back with some glory.
Yeah. Adil, your thoughts also on the crowds that have attended so far in the Ambula so far in the Women's Asia Cup has been really impressive, and to see a good fan following also of Sri Lankan women's cricket in recent times has been really good. In the past year or two, I think a lot of people are following the women's cricket because they are performing well, and people are starting to follow. So that's good. That's a good thing because in the past few years, nobody was even following Sri Lankan women's cricket. All they knew was Chamari Athapaththu. That's it. Now they sort of know like the other players, and it's sort of Sri Lankan cricket fans are following women's cricket as well, so that's a good sign. But your thoughts on the fans turnout so far in the Women's Asia Cup?
Yeah, so the fan following for Sri Lanka women's cricket, I see there are definitely two reasons. One reason, of course, as you said, the team has been performing really well. Not as you said, not just Chamari Athapaththu, even the other players have stepped up and they are winning games. They are winning against good oppositions, and they are winning important matches. The other reason I see is the decline of the men's team. So there is this. That's another reason for sure for the people to kind of incline more towards the women's team because they are the winning team at the moment. I'm not sure if it will be the same if the men's team were also doing well, because there has been a era where the women's team have done well back in the day, but at the same time the men's team was also doing well. Probably the cricket following crowd was also not as much as compared to the current day and age. But anyway, both these reasons have definitely contributed towards the following, and I wish it remains the same, because eventually they are going to have a bad phase. Eventually, like every team goes through, eventually they are going to have a phase where they lose miserably, where they don't win enough games. And I really want to see the same fan following stick with them, even during those days. And there might be a period where the Sri Lanka men's team also does well in the future. And I want to see these fans continue to support the women's team at that point as well. So if this is actually a genuine fan base, I'm not sure. But for the moment, there is a really good fan base, and I really hope they stick with the team going forward, irrespective of the results. Irrespective of the results.
Yeah. Final question, you guys. Do you think Chamari Athapaththu should retire after the 2024-2020 World Cup and give it to someone like Harshita or I think even Kavisha Dilhari might opt for captaincy, but I think most likely it might be Harshita who's going to take over captaincy, or should she remain until, because we saw Sangakkar obviously going to the peak and then retiring and then giving to youngsters, and we saw what happened after 2015. That was the wrong decision, and many people question that he could have played 2 or 3 years. But coming to Chamari Athapaththu, she was hinting of retirement, but do you think she can carry on for 2 or 3 more years with the form that she's in? I think she should take maximum capabilities. I know she's 34, whatever, but still, I feel like she has 2 or 3 years left in her. But both of you, what are your thoughts on Chamari Athapaththu? What should she do after this 2020 World Cup? Starting with Adil.
Okay. I thought Megan will go first. Hey,
Okay.
Okay.
see, captaincy, I don't know if she needs to continue or if she will continue, because that's a huge issue that I'm seeing in the women's cricket team, because Harshita is still what, 26 or something. There is Hasini Pereira as well as a contender, because she has led the team before. She led the team in an Asia Cup, and I think a World Cup, also a T20 World Cup. Even
But
though
she's
she
not
has not,
playing, right? She's not playing
she's
much
playing.
though nowadays.
She's
Yeah,
playing.
she's
She's
playing.
playing. She played
She's
again.
playing. She not just she's a regular in the playing 11. She
Okay.
just didn't play the Malaysia game because they rested a lot of few players and
But
wanted to
I think
try.
Harshita is performing better than Hashini, right?
Exactly,
Most, that's
exactly. I was going to come there. So Harshita is definitely performing well than Hasini, but I'm not sure if Harshita is still ready for captaincy. Hasini, I see some leadership qualities, but she's not performing as well as Harshita. So there is definitely a vacuum of leadership once Chamari, decides to let go captaincy. So I'm not sure if they need, if they, I mean, I don't know if they will ask Chamari to continue and not groom the next captain, because I feel it will be better if they can kind of give the captaincy to a youngster while Chamari is still playing, and groom
yeah.
her with Chamari in the playing 11. And about Chamari's retirement, I wish she never retires from cricket and she continues to play for Sri Lanka as long as possible.
Okay.
Because she's that a good player. She's that a good player. I don't know. I mean, until
Yeah,
she can.
yeah, definitely. Agree. Yeah, Shamigan, your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. If we have the option, we'd have Sangakkara, we'd have Mahela, we'd have Sanath Jayasuriya playing all our lives.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, eventually it has to come to an end because um, I heard this from Kohli. It's not the same as it is for other professions for a professional sportsman, because they are giving up so much in their personal lives, Pawan. So I
Yeah,
think that's a decision that they have to make for themselves. And
yeah,
whenever Chamari decides, it's time to hang up boots, because it's time, because that's left for her. But I think the best way to do it is, as Adil mentioned, bring in another captain, groom under her. That's
Yeah.
what happened to the men's team. That's the curse that we went through from 2014-15. And whoever was chosen for leadership right after that was sacked all of a sudden. No consistency, no perseverance. That is what led for a downfall. But I only wish that does not happen to this team, because this is a team in a peak. Whenever there is a team in a peak, there's going to be a drop right after it, and
yeah,
there's going to be players going away. This is the cycle of world sport, not just cricket. Whenever a team is in the peak, there's going to be a drop followed, and it's about how we prepare for the drop and how we go through that drop. That defines how we come back out of it. Because 2007-8, when India faced this drop, that's the way they fought back. Within the next 4-5 years, they came up so high, so hard, and we know where they are for over a decade now. So I think that's how we should plan this team also, because we are seeing that potential from this Sri Lanka team. For the first time in history, a Sri Lanka team, a women's Sri Lanka team, is considered par with England, India, and Australia. And we
very
have
true.
players in the caliber to match all of these teams. So I
I think
think
we are
that's
sort of like the Afghanistan team in the men's
Women's game.
2020 World, yeah, men's
exactly
2020 World Cup right now.
it's not gonna be very far away for us to play regular test cricket also in women's arena. So I
Yeah,
think with all that, we have to now plan who is next, not just the next, who is gonna be after that also. That's how
yeah.
I think we
I
are
think
gonna work.
we've only played like one women's test match ever. I think that was
Yeah,
back in 2000 against
yeah, way
Pakistan.
back, way
So
back,
Pakistan.
yeah, so
way
I
Way
back.
back.
think
Yeah.
it's time that they consider, ICC considers and gives Sri Lanka women's team another chance at test cricket, because we see South Africa, New Zealand.
I think
Yeah,
it's up to the cricket board, right? If they can manage to get another board agree and arrange a test, they can play. So, yeah.
yeah. So I think each time they should do it. So because there's many stadiums in Sri Lanka that they can host a test match. Plus, I think either they can go overseas and play a test match also. So I think they definitely can do it. I think even Pakistan plays women's test a bit. I don't know. Yeah, quite a
I
bit.
don't remember them playing in the recent. Yeah.
Okay, recent.
Not,
Okay,
not
Yeah.
in
all
the
right.
recent
Recently.
times. Not in the recent times. Only teams that play women's test cricket in the recent times are India,
India,
England, and
South
Australia.
Africa, South Africa, England, and Australia.
South Africa also play. Yeah. South
Yeah,
Africa,
South
England,
Not
Australia,
regularly.
England,
I'm
and
saying
not really.
the regular fan following in the high standard of Test cricket is just the three teams. I want teams to
Three.
compete in that caliber,
Yeah,
and I want teams to be playing more often than not at that level. And I think
yeah,
Sri Lanka is a contender for that very soon.
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I hope that Sri Lanka women's can perform like what we did in the 2013 ODI World Cup. Unexpectedly, we performed very well in that ODI World Cup, and I think Shashikala Siribhadrana was
Shashikala.
captain. Yeah, Shashikala
Shashikala.
Siribhadrana was captain back then, and then Chamari was just, I think, grooming at that time. I think 2013. I think she had a very good tournament there also in the 2013 ODI World Cup. Although we didn't see the big scores, but she did pretty okay, and the whole team was experienced back then also, and then they performed. So hopefully in this 2020 World Cup we can perform like what we did. I mean, 2 years back we did beat South Africa. So I mean, what happened after that, it was unfortunate. We beat, I think, South Africa and Bangladesh,
And
and after that
Bangladesh. Yeah.
yeah, and after that we got knocked out. So I mean, hopefully we can do that sort of performance this time around in Bangladesh. So let's see how. I think we are a better team, and I think we can do well in the next 2 to 3 years with if Chamari Athapaththu can continue and then can groom a captain. I think even without Chamari, I think this team can go a long way. So it just depends on how we
That's
approach. I
the
mean,
that's
the
the I'm sorry, Pawan. That's the biggest
yeah,
plus I'm seeing in this team because we are not even we just don't need Chamri to perform every other day to win a game
yeah,
right now, and that is the biggest plus because Sri Lanka, whenever Sri Lanka won a couple of years back, it was Chamari won, not entirely the Sri Lankan team. So I think
absolutely,
now
yeah,
the players are stepping up, and second tier there is a second tier of players who can actually take over. So that is the biggest plus, and we should make sure this crop just grooms better.
yeah, definitely. All right, guys. So thank you so much once again, Adil, Shamigan, and even Mark. I know it's nearly the 2 hour mark, but we had a lot to discuss about. Didn't even think of going that long, but it happens when we discuss about cricket, and these sort of conversations take us a lot of time to discuss. So, but once again, thank you, Adil and Shamigan, for taking your time. I know it took a long time from you guys, but I hope it was a worthy of a conversation from both you guys, and I hope we can. I can bring you guys back to my channel once again. But thank you so much once again for joining.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's a
All
pleasure
right.
to talk cricket.
Yeah. All right. So do subscribe the Sports Breakdown, like, comment, and share, and also do check out Mark's page, the Murali End on YouTube. I think it goes under 1129 Media. So do subscribe the channel, and also check on Murali End on Instagram and X, and do follow Adil Siddiq on X and on Instagram, and his YouTube channel as well. Quick Stick. I think he
Yeah.
still has, I think, only 70 subscribers, but please do subscribe from my end. At least I'll try. I'll try my best to promote your channel and
Thank
try
you.
to
Thank
get
you.
subscribers. Yeah, yeah, I'll try to definitely do my best to ensure my people subscribe to your channel somehow soon. So please do subscribe to his channel, and also follow Shamigan as well on X and on Instagram as well. So thank you so much, and see you in the next video, guys. Thank you so much. Once again, good night.